Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. My guest today is Tianna Bettinson. She lives in New York City, and she is a young single adult. We didn't get around to talking about that. She's a good representation of how the world has changed as far as marriage, and I guess also how the church has changed as far as the number of singles in the church. I think I counted of all the guests here on Tribe of Testimonies, I think the number is 18 young single adults, or single adults, not just young single adults. And I guess now that's 19. It's interesting how that has changed, and the church culture has changed regarding that. I don't know. We didn't really get to talk about it, but just something to think about as you listen to her. It's a good thing that we have the Lord in our lives to help us make decisions, because sometimes having a spouse to help you make decisions is easier, but we're so grateful that we can pray to Heavenly Father and He can help us make decisions. Yeah, so just kind of keep that in mind as you listen to Tianna. She's great, and I'm grateful for the time with her. Here she is. I am on the phone today with my new friend, Tianna Bettinson, and we may never ever meet in person, or maybe someday, but right now she's in New York. Tianna, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks your language, and some languages are dead.
Tianna Bettinson Nishya, Bilagana Nishla, Todachini Bashashin. And hello, I am Tianna Bettinson, and my mom is white and my dad is Navajo from the Todachini or Bitterwater clan.
Great. Yeah. Tianna, would you please share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It can be pretty much anything: a story, a celebration, a way of life, a ceremony. What do you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel?
So I've been thinking about this a lot, just not just in preparation for, the podcast and stuff, but just like in general as I've been like learning more about my heritage. And like I think like one thing that like really stands out to me is just the spirituality within so many Native cultures. And then just like having knowledge of our Creator and an understanding that we are, children of deity, and what that means for us, how we're part of like a bigger whole, and that we have a lot of value and a lot of worth. And I think that that's something that's really like, I think, wonderful that exists both in like Native teachings for many tribes, and then also like in the church teachings, is just that knowledge of that Creator and like how we are, important, cared for children of deity. I think that's like something that's really, really remarkable.
I love that. I mean, I can't off the top of my head think of anybody who's put it that way before on the podcast. Like, you and I, as members of the church, whoever is listening, we definitely believe Adam and Eve were the son and daughter of heavenly parents. And yet also in the Navajo way, we have these Navajo deities. It kind of just, it tells all these stories and then it kind of just skips. And then there's the Navajo people from them. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Where did your life start and how did you end up in New York?
Yeah, so I grew up in Salt Lake City, West Valley City specifically, for those who are familiar with the area. I grew up there, lived there until I went to college. I attended college at BYU. From like probably like 2011 is when I started, and then I graduated in 2017. I had a mission in there as well. And after I graduated, it's kind of quite the story how I got out here. So initially, when I graduated, I ended up moving to Kansas City, Missouri. And I moved out there because I joined the Teach for America program, which I'll, hereafter just refer to as TFA. But like, I joined TFA, which is just like a program that, takes college graduates and places them in different regions across the United States, in classrooms, and like, kind of trains them to be classroom teachers. And
isn't that program where you don't have to have a teaching degree to start out with?
Yeah,
and it like puts you also in classrooms that are high need for good teachers, like good role models and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And yeah, so I like kind of like joined that kind of like just because like as I was like getting closer to graduation, like I didn't have like anything lined up, and this opportunity just kind of like came. There's like a recruiter at BYU who like contacted me and was like, hey, you like put like you were interested in this like, a couple years ago. And so like wanted to meet with me and stuff like that. And I ended up, kind of like joining it somewhat like begrudgingly, but I just didn't have too much like lined up initially for it.
Yeah, you're like, I need something. Here is something.
Yeah, and I got in. And I ended up moving out to Kansas City, and I taught there for 3 years. And then like while I was there, I just like the entire time I was like out there, because I didn't really have too much of a say in like where they placed me once I got accepted to TFA. Once I was out there, I just kind of like kept feeling, I don't know, like I was like not in the right place, I think is like the best way to put it. And I just like remember like during like my time out there, like just feeling like I was like trapped out there, and like that like, like in this like profession that like I didn't necessarily like really want to be in.
So what did you major in at BYU?
Yeah, so I majored in I ended up majoring in sociology.
And then in Kansas, what were you teaching?
I was teaching 5th grade.
Whoa, they're not related.
Yeah, there was some like overlap, especially because like like sociology I think like offered me like a great base of like just to like have like understanding of just like societally like how education works, and like the needs that like different groups have in the education like industry and everything. And like it helped me like understand more like kind of like why education sometimes falls short and everything. And so that was like really helpful just to have like that understanding.
Yeah, so sociology gave you a good foundation to teach 5th grade, and yet you still didn't feel like it was where you needed to be. Maybe it was for the moment, but definitely not long term.
Yeah. So yeah, like while I was out there, like I just like just kind of like really felt like just like trapped. I think that was like the best way that I can describe it, just trapped in this area that like I didn't choose. And so I was like feeling like really frustrated and just kind of like hopeless. And I couldn't really see a good way like out of this area either. Just because like, like I had spent, when all was like said and done, like it would be like 3 years, which, at the time like felt like a lot, like a huge chunk of like, my life. So I was just like, oh, is it even worth it to like, leave? Because like I have like friends here. I have like, I've started to set up like somewhat of a life there and everything. But like, I just like, there was just something that was just off the entire time. And like looking back on it, like, in hindsight, like, I've been away from that area now for almost 3 years. And like, I was like, just the entire time, just kind of felt miserable. And I didn't quite realize like the extent of like how bad that I felt there.
So you felt trapped in Kansas City area. And then where did you go? How did you get out? You had a 3-year contract?
Yeah, so, like, with TFA, it's a 2-year commitment.
So you were in Kansas, and then something changed, and you decided to leave, right? So you said that you are in New York now. So how did you get to New York, and are you still teaching, or are you in a different career?
Yeah, so how I got back out to New York, that's, just a little bit of a story, and, Teach for America, and then, like, once that ended, I didn't quite know where to go from there. I didn't because, like, teaching was just, like, a really just difficult profession, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
and, so that was, like, really hard, because it was so difficult, like, I had, was devoting so much, like, mental and emotional energy to, like, my job, so I didn't really have, um like really mental energy to devote to like looking for like other options. So that was like a really difficult thing. So I just like kind of felt like really trapped. So like after my second year teaching, once I was done with like TFA, I could leave. There was nothing like binding me to Kansas City. But like I had such a hard time like I'm like really knowing like okay like where do I go from here? And like and I didn't have anything once again like I just didn't have anything like um lined up for me, and I um didn't quite know what to do, so I just felt like really like trapped, and like I just couldn't leave, and I like didn't know like I was like okay if I leave here like where do I go, and like if I leave like the state of Missouri then I have to worry about like licensure in like different states, and that's a whole like more hoops that you'd have to jump through. And like at that time, just because of like how like just overwhelmed and stressed I just felt in general, because of like how much energy and time I was putting into my job and everything, um, like I just didn't feel like I had that energy to put towards like um, finding a way out and everything. So that was like really, really difficult. And so I decided to like stay in Kansas City for the next year at my same school and everything. And so my third year of teaching started, and just like a little bit like with teaching, like it was really difficult, but like that third year it started, and like I really just enjoyed at first like my class and everything. That year I was also like really lucky that I had a student teacher, so that helps kind of like take some like of that pressure off, like just having another set of hands in the classroom and everything. And so that was like really good. But come October, like I started to feel burnout, which was actually typical. Like, this was my third year teaching, and pretty typically, like every year, the school year would start, you'd be like really excited, really like gung ho, like, okay, um, we're going to do this, it's going to be a good year and everything. But then like by October, like pretty consistently I would just start to feel like intense burnout, and just being like so tired and like feeling a lot of like anxiety. I think that was like a huge like thing. Part of my job is just feeling so anxious like all the time. And those feelings started coming up again, like that anxiety, which eventually led to just feelings of depression, of just like I just can't, like, I don't know, if it was really difficult just to like, day to day, like I would wake up and I would just be like dreading,
Super
like,
heavy.
yeah, yeah, just dreading like waking up and going to work. And like I felt like every time like I would go to work, it felt like a sprint. Like I would wake up, usually just because I was just so tired, like and emotionally and mentally drained, I would just like lay in bed until like I absolutely had to get up. Um, and then from there it was like, hurry, like throw some clothes on, hurry, like make my hair presentable, and then like rush out the door to school. And then once I got to work, it was like kind of go, go, go. There was at the school I was at, there wasn't really time built in for teachers to have breaks. Um, and that was like really difficult. So it was like, it was kind of like go, 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 go. We had like 20 minutes, if that, for lunch, and then it was like go, 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 go continuously. You're with like the students for like most of that. And then like the times that you're not with the students, you're it's like a mad dash to like get everything ready for like, upcoming days and upcoming lessons. And it was just overwhelming and just like a lot. So I'm starting to feel once again like that burnout by October, which in the United States, school starts in like end of August. And so like this is only like, maybe 6 weeks of the school year before I start to feel like I am burnt out and like I like just don't feel like I have too like much more to give type of a thing. And so like that was so I was facing once again in this third year like those feelings again of just like I am just tired, I'm anxious all the time, I'm just like yeah, just not really coping very well. During this time though, like I had a friend who had once been part of TFA with me. And then like once his TFA commitment ended, he ended up leaving Kansas City and he moved out to Washington, D.C. But he came back in around October, so around that time to come and visit. And I was hanging out with him and another friend. And he was trying to convince me and my other friend to move out to the East Coast. And like that was something that like before like I like graduated, before I like joined TFA, before I came to Kansas City, like I always like had wanted to live out on the East Coast.
Oh, really?
DC, yeah. DC was definitely like the top of my list of like places that like where I wanted to go. Just because I thought it was sounded like really exciting and I thought it was it would be something that would be really cool. But like at this point, you know, like I kind of felt like reality had hit me and I was just like, yeah, I'm never gonna be able to get out there. I think some things that were like really just like hindering me from that in my mind, like the reasons why I wouldn't be able to get out there had to do with like you know, like the cost of living so high, like, you know, I'm just a teacher, like teachers don't make a ton, so it's like how will I ever be able to like, you know, make that leap. And I just thought that I was just kind of like stuck where I was. And but and so like I mentioned kind of like Tim, I was like, yeah, like I wanted to like move out there like at one point, but I was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to like, you know, afford it and everything. And he like kind of was just looked at me, he's like, Tianna, like let me break it down for you. He's like, so like, he's like, if you moved out here, would you stay in teaching? And I was like, well, I don't know what else I'd do. So yeah. And he's like, okay, so if you move out there, here's what teachers make. Here's what I pay for rent. Here's like what you can expect, like, you know, your monthly costs to be. And he was like, you could totally do it. And like, so he like sat down and he like broke down the costs and like, it was totally doable according to him, like, you know. And I was like, like maybe it is possible, but I still like wasn't entirely convinced at that time that I'd actually be able to do anything like that. And so I just kind of was just like, okay, yeah, whatever, like maybe, I don't know, we'll see, like, you know, that type of a thing. Anyway, he ended up like going back, and, you know, then I was still in Kansas City. About a month or so went by. Come November, I remember it was like around like Thanksgiving time. I had like, one of the things that I would do when I was teaching is like on the weekends, on like Saturday mornings, I would wake up like super early and I would take like all of my teaching stuff and I would like go to like Starbucks and I would like work at Starbucks to like get me out of the house and to like help me focus like outside of my house. And I would just like work on like school stuff and like preparing for lessons and things like the next day. And so I had done that like you know, one weekend, just headed out to work. And it got to be like, you know, around the time when like other stores would like start to open, and like the Starbucks that I had chosen to go to was like in this like shopping center in this shopping area. And so I decided to like go walk around just to like take a break from like, you know, all the schoolwork and stuff that I was doing. And so I was like walking around and I went to a Barnes and Noble that was like next door. And so I like walked into the Barnes and Noble and I like went to the kids section and I like to like look at like, you know, the new titles that were coming out, particularly for like, you know, fifth grade students, just to get some ideas of like, okay, like what can I do? Like, what are some books that, you know, might interest my students or like, you know, be really fun to read with them. And I walked by, like they had this whole section on like biographies. And I walked by it and I see Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime. And a little bit about me is I love Trevor Noah. So I like got really excited. And this was like an adapted for young readers version. And I knew he had written a book, but like, you know, it's, you know, geared towards adults. But this one in particular was for like, you know, young readers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get this book for my class. And I like look at it, I like grab it, I look at the back of the book to see like how much it was. And it was like more expensive than I like wanted to pay for it, especially because like if I was to get this book, I'd have to get like multiple copies for my class and everything. So I was just like, okay, like I don't know that I can like afford this. But like I like was so like determined. I was like, I want this book. Like I think this would be so much fun to read with my class. I think that they would love it. Like the engagement would be like super high. And on top of that, like, you know, the next semester we were going to actually be reading biographies, and I was like, this is perfect. This is great. And I was like so much like I want this book that I was like, I will do like anything to get this. So I like sat down with my computer, and I pulled up like a website called Donors Choose, which is like this website where teachers can like submit requests for like classroom materials, and then they can get those materials, like they can put in those requests, and then people like from around the world can like donate money to get those requests funded and those materials in the classroom and everything. And I had like always known about this, but I like never, I think like the big thing was I just didn't have confidence in myself that I'd ever be able to like get something funded, or like, you know, like I just didn't think that. I was like, I don't think anybody like would really care enough about my classroom to get anything funded for us, or like, you know, or I don't think I like really would be able to like pull this off. But in that moment, I was just like, I want this so much that like I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna do this. And so I like submitted a request for you know, the Trevor Noah book along with like 4 other titles, and just to get like a small group set of them. And within like a week, like all of those materials were funded, and they were like in my classroom, which was like really cool and really exciting. And I just remember like in that moment, I was just like, whoa, like I just like did that. I just like, you know, did something that I thought was like previously like wouldn't like actually happen, or like was kind of like impossible in my mind. But like I did that just because I like wanted those books, and I got them. And I was like, it was like a huge like confidence booster. And I was like, okay, well, if I can do that, like what else can I do? And like kind of it was like a light switch went on in my mind, where I was like, what am I still doing in Kansas City? Like I never wanted to be here. I don't feel like I should be here. Like, why am I still here? And that was like the moment that I decided, like, you know, I was going to get out. I was going to leave. And at that point, like, I wasn't exactly sure where to go. I was like, okay, well, like, you know, maybe I'll go to DC, because like I've always wanted to live there. Or maybe I'll like move back to Salt Lake with my parents for a bit and like go from there and figure it out. But like the different options that I was looking at, which was primarily just those two, like DC or like moving back to Salt Lake, both of them just like didn't feel right. Like when I thought about them, like I just couldn't quite imagine myself doing that still. I knew at that moment, like, you know, from that time on, like I knew like I was gonna leave and I was gonna be gone from Kansas City. But like at that time, you know, just other things, just like it just didn't feel like I can't really describe it except for like it just didn't feel right, the places that I was looking at. And so a little bit later, this was around Christmas time, I was reading one of those books that I got for my students, just to get prepared for like, you know, the upcoming semester when we'd actually be using those books. And in one of the books that I got, it was actually the actress Diane Guerrero's book. I can't remember the name of it, but in that book, she talks about moving to New York. And as soon as I like read like that part of the book, like I just like, it was just like, I knew that New York was where I was going to go. And it was like really interesting that way, because like, you know, I had never really thought about moving to New York City. Like when I thought about New York City, it kind of seemed like this big, like overwhelming city to me. I'd been there like one time for like a day and a half when I was like a teenager for like a family trip and stuff. And like I liked it, like I didn't hate it, but I was just like, oh, this is like, I don't know that I'll ever live here type of a thing. But like, yeah, I don't know, like as soon as I like read that part of the book, it was just like I just like knew that like that's where I wanted, not only like was like supposed to go, but like I like felt like so excited, and I was like, I want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was huge. And so from then on, like, you know, I just was like, okay, well, like, let's make this happen. Like what needs to happen? I need to get a job. I need to find housing. I need to do these things. Okay. Like, let's make this happen. And so from there, I like, you know, started looking for jobs, doing job searches and stuff. During this time, I guess like this is like something that I do want to kind of like bring up a little bit, like, you know, like during this time, like I was, you know, I hadn't quite prayed about like exactly where I wanted to go, but like I felt like I probably should. Like, I don't know, like that was just like something that I was like, oh, like I feel like I should probably just like pray about this, like make sure that I'm not like totally off base with like, you know, like my ideas here to move to New York. And so when I prayed about like this decision, I remember it was different than like other times I had prayed about like other decisions. Usually, like in the past, when I had like prayed about like, you know, a big decision in my life, it was often like, you know, like what should I do? And like, you know, kind of like asking, almost like asking like permission, like, should I do this? Like, is this okay to do? In this case, though, like I approached it completely differently. Like, I remember like when I was praying about it, I pretty much just like told God, I was like, yeah, I want to do this. I probably am going to do this regardless. But I just want to like maybe like double check that like I'm totally not like, you know, messing up,
Mhm.
you know, my life or like anything like that. But I was like, but like honestly, like I want this so bad that I'm going to do this like regardless. Um, but I remember like the answer that I got in response to like, you know, that prayer was pretty much like, if this is something that will help you learn and grow, then go do it. Like, you know, which I think was like hugely freeing to me, especially like at that time, where I felt like I just like needed almost like permission to do things. Um, like, and by permission to do things, I mean like specifically like permission from God to like do things and like, you know, live the life that I wanted to live. Like that was like hugely freeing and like I think a huge hurdle that I needed to get over, which is having this like understanding that like you know, there's a lot of like, you know, choices we're going to have to make in our life, but we have so much agency over those choices. And like if we're approaching those choices, you know, with the spirit of like, will this help me learn and grow? Like, you know, I think our like what regardless of what choice we make, if we're looking for choices that will help us progress as people and as individuals, I think that God will support us with what we do. Like I don't know that there's just like, and I'll get into this a little bit later when I talk a little bit about switching careers here, but like I think I had in my mind that there was like this idea of like one pathway that like was predetermined for us and we had to figure out what it was. Um, but like in that moment, like to me, it like kind of like opened up a whole realm of possibilities of like there's so many different pathways we can choose. And you know, and we have that, you know, we have that gift of agency and that ability to choose like what we want and that God will be there to support us in our choices rather than us like trying to like figure out that one true path that we need to go on. And so like that was like hugely freeing and I think like definitely like gave me this good confidence boost that like, you know, like I could make these decisions for myself and I could do this simply for like no other reason than I just like wanted to. And I thought it would be a good move that would help me progress as a person and to have experiences and gain experiences that I needed. Um, and yeah, and so from there on, I like, you know, kept applying for jobs. I ended up getting, I think it was like four job offers, and I was looking specifically for teaching jobs because I was like, I think I can only handle one big decision at a time. Like right now, it's like I'm changing like where I'm gonna live, um, and so I like was just applying for like, you know, teaching jobs. I got a position as a fifth grade math teacher up in Harlem, New York, and all of this happened. And this is kind of like a quick side note about this. So all of this was going on the beginning of 2020. And so like I was like applying for jobs. I had like heard back from a lot of jobs and gotten like interviews like in New York City for the week of like March 17th of 2020, which if we remember that
Oh
time
my
of
goodness.
all of our lives, that was like the week that everything shut down. So I didn't end up going out to the city. All of my interviews instead switched to being online because everything just shut down from there. So that was quite the adventure. But anyway, I ended up getting a job, and then from there I found a place out in Brooklyn, New York, and I moved out here. So yeah,
Wow.
that was how I got to New York.
That's interesting. And pardon me. I love what you just said about how your answer came from Heavenly Father, that if it would help you learn and grow. That's so interesting, because when I went and did an internship in DC, and I wasn't married or anything, and I was trying to decide too what to do with my life. And so I prayed, and the answer was either one. You can stay here or go home. Either one's a good choice. And I was like, well, that's not helpful. And then I went to the temple, and the personal revelation, the feeling I got there was either one. It's up to you. You choose which one, and it will work. And I even got a priesthood blessing, and all three of them were the same. You can decide. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like sometimes like it can be frustrating when you get that, but like, you know, the answer that like, you know, the choice is yours. But at the same time, like it's so freeing too, because
empowering.
It's like,
Yeah.
It's like you have that choice. And I think that was like, yeah. And then when you actually like make that decision and you follow through with it, like honestly, like that was like one of the most empowering things ever for
And
me.
he trusts us to do good and to look for the right.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was like huge, like him having trust in us, because I think you know we are taught so much, you know, to have trust in God, which is important, like hugely important. But I think like almost equally important is just having that trust and that faith in ourselves, that we're also able, you know, to have, that we also have like power, and we're able to, you know, build a life that we want. I think that that's also like a huge part of um what we need to learn in this life as well, is just having that faith and trust in ourselves. Yeah.
So your undergrad was in sociology, and then you taught 5th grade, and then you went to teach math, elementary math.
Yeah. So in Kansas City, when I was teaching 5th grade, I was teaching all subjects, so reading, math, science, the works. But like I've always kind of like been somebody who like really liked math, and like science and things like that. So when I moved out here to New York, I kind of was a lot more selective about like what school I was going to, and I had like a list of like you know, things that I wanted my school to have. One of the things I wanted like my subjects, or like whatever I taught, to be differentiated. Or is that the right word? Oh man, I can't remember the word anymore. I think differentiated is the right word. Where it's like, you know, the teachers are only teaching like one subject at a time. So that was one thing. And at that point, like I didn't really care like what subject it was, just as long as like I was only in charge of one
That you
thing.
could just focus on that.
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that I found a school that like was more supportive of teachers than my previous school had been, and that trusted teachers more so than my previous school had. And and there were a couple other things that I can't quite remember anymore, but like the school that I ended up going to checked all of those boxes, like, and they were like a really great school. So they had like, you know, the differentiated subjects. So I was math, and they had a very supportive leadership, which I think was really great. When I moved out to New York though, like because this was like 2020, we were entirely online, which was like own like set of challenges, you know, like you know, doing online teaching, dealing with the pandemic and everything. That was definitely like really difficult once I like moved out here. And like and I started like, you know, work and everything like that entire year. So this was the 2020-2021 school year. Out in New York, like at my school specifically, this wasn't true for all schools, but at my school specifically, we were online the entire year. So I never met my students in person. I think I like met my coworkers one time in person that entire year. And that was like at a little like coworker get together that we had in Central Park one day. And it was, yeah. So that was like, that was challenging in and of itself, just because I was like coming into the school, not knowing anybody, and then my entire interactions with everybody trying to build this classroom culture and trying to like relate to these students was all done like through a screen. And so like that was pretty challenging. Yeah. So that was, but like at the same time, like, despite like all the challenges and everything, like there were some good things about being online that I like really enjoyed. For one, I like felt like I had like a lot more freedom over my schedule. Like when like so we had 2 classes per day. We had a morning class and like an afternoon class. And part of our like, in our schedule, built into our schedule, was like giving the students a break, like 10-15 minute break and stuff per class. And it was so nice because when I gave my students a break, I could also take a break. I could like turn off my camera and like go and do what I needed to do
because you
and
didn't
like
have to babysit them even when they were taking a break.
It was so great. And like just like not having a commute was like really nice. And it was like I could like get things done like during the day that I like wouldn't have. Like specifically remember like, I was like, oh, I have time to like, run to the laundromat like in between meetings really fast, like, to like throw in a load of laundry or like switch over things, like, which was like so helpful at everything. So like in that case, like it was really helpful for me to see that like, working online was something that was possible and like something that I like. There were parts of it that I really, really enjoyed that like weren't available to me when I was like in person and everything. So that was really good. Despite like all of this though, me being in a school that was like a much better fit for me, and like me now being like in a place that was like a much better fit for me, like I still found myself like I still found it like it kind of like that I was still like kind of miserable. I was still like dealing with a lot of like anxiety that I think was just like carryover from like previous, specifically from like my first year of teaching. And like I was still like feeling like I was like waking up every morning just like dreading going to work, and like it was like really bad. Like just like my anxiety, and it got so bad that like I started to get like really, really depressed as well. Like I remember very specifically, it was during spring break. And I was like so excited because we'd have a whole week off of like work and everything. And I, had just moved to New York, and it was like a really cool city. And like I was loving living out here and everything. So I was so excited to like, have this break to like go out and explore the city a little bit more, and like just like have like a little bit of time to myself. And I remember just like that break though, I was just so exhausted from everything that I spent like pretty much most of it like just laying in bed. Like I would like wake up and I just like could not get myself to like get out of bed for like anything. And I would just like, kind of just lay in bed and just like scroll through my phone, because I just like could not really function like at that time until like late in the afternoon. And then I would feel guilty like, oh, I just wasted this entire day, and this is like one of my days that I was supposed to be enjoying, and like maybe I could have like gotten ahead in like schoolwork, or like planned lessons more, or like figured out better ways to like teach and everything, or like even just like go out and see the city, that type of a thing. But I just like felt like I had wasted it, just like spending it like all day like in bed. But like I think that happened just because I was just like so mentally and emotionally just exhausted still. And that was like kind of like really eye-opening to me in that time though, because like here I was like at a school that was just a much better fit, but I'm still like just miserable like with where I'm at, and like I still just like don't feel like I I don't feel like I am able to be like the person I want to be, just because of like how just exhausted and like anxious and like depressed that I just felt like all the time and everything. And yeah, so it got like, like I started to feel like just really bad, just like emotionally, and it got to like a pretty low point. And I remember just having this feeling that like, like just this distinct impression, like, you need to go and like, just go talk to God and just tell him like everything that you're feeling, and like everything that's going on and stuff. And I remember like when I like had that feeling, you need to go and like, just talk to God and like just all of that. I remember just thinking like, but I don't really see the point in doing that because like he should already know like how I'm feeling, like, but like I just kept getting this like feeling like go like, go talk to him and stuff like that. And this was like, during the height of COVID still. So like I think at that time, like, the temple had been reopened, but like I can't remember. I don't know if it was just like I didn't feel comfortable yet going to a public place like that quite yet because of COVID. Or if it was just like, difficult to like, get appointments. I can't remember the exact circumstance, but either way, like I was like, I just didn't feel like I was able to go to like the temple or anything. But like, I think like, and I still believe this, like during like COVID, like, especially during COVID, that like, that God will provide us with places where we're able to commune with him if we're not able to get to like, a temple or like a church, or like he'll still provide us with those places. And so like decided one day to walk up to one of my favorite spots in Brooklyn, which is Greenwood Cemetery. It's this really pretty, like, cemetery that has like just gorgeous trees, especially like during this time of year, in the spring and everything. And there's some really pretty spots that like overlook, Manhattan and everything. And so it's just a really nice place. And it's one of like the few places in New York where I felt like I could go and like walk around and be outside and also be completely alone. Because like it's not very crowded there, like ever. So I decided to like walk up there one Sunday afternoon, and I just like started walking. Like, I get up to the cemetery, to a place where like, where I could walk pretty much alone, and I just started like talking out loud to like, praying and just like, telling God like everything that I was feeling, how I was like, just like so overwhelmed, and I felt like I like was just, once again, like those feelings of just being trapped in my circumstances were coming up, where I just felt like I was so trapped. I like, because I did not like my job. I did not like, like teaching or anything, but I just like at that time felt trapped because like I didn't feel like I had anywhere else to go. I was like, okay, if I quit teaching, like what do I do? Like I don't have anything lined up. I like the degree that I got in sociology, like, you have to go and get a master's degree to do anything with it. At that time, I had a master's degree, but it was in education. So I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I was like, if I leave teaching, like, I don't want to like, stay in the education industry. Like, it's just like, I'm just so overwhelmed with this. I'm constantly like, just anxious and feel like, just terrible, like all the time. And I was like, and on top of that, like, I was like, I was also like, I was just so afraid that like, I had spent like, 4 years at this point, being a teacher. Like that's a chunk of like my adult life, like at that time. Well, yeah, that's still at this time, like that's a chunk of it, like, a chunk of my 20s. And I was like, did I just waste like 4 years? Like, and if I quit, will those 4 years just have been like this like waste? And like I just was just like, I like, and it was just like just so overwhelming to me. And I was just like, and so I just like, just poured out all of this, and I remember like in that moment, like, just feeling so connected to God though. Like it was like one of the times in my life where I felt most connected to him. Like I felt just like this connection, whereas like I'm like talking to you like as if you were like right in front of me. And I just felt like really strongly like, that like number one, like it's going to like you're okay. And then like number two, like just this understanding came into my head. That what kind of like a little bit what we were talking about before, this understanding came into my head that like there are so many different options for us to choose in our life and like different pathways that we can take. And yeah, there may be one pathway that's like most direct, getting us from A to B, but just because we take a pathway that's like not direct doesn't mean that we're never going to be able to get back onto the right track. And doesn't mean that pathway also was a waste either. And like I kind of like compared it to like, I was walking through this gorgeous cemetery, right? And it was springtime. The trees were full, like completely fully in bloom. And I like had like a goal to where I was going to get, like I was trying to get to this one particular place like in the cemetery, but like I had been taking lots of detours. Like I had been like going up this path because there was this gorgeous magnolia tree that I just like wanted to go see, and or like there was this beautiful pond that I wanted to go see and take pictures of. And so like, you know, it took me a lot longer to get to like, you know, where my destination was. But like that didn't mean that those pathways were bad, or like those pathways were a waste. In fact, they added to like the enrichment and to like my enjoyment of like of the day. You know, I, you know, and it was, and that was something that like I like didn't regret. Like, you know, when I was like walking, you know, through, I didn't regret leaving like the main path to like go and see these things. And they actually just like made my day better. And so like I, in that moment, like I just had this like understanding that like, you know, detours aren't always bad, and they can just actually like add enrichment to us. And like yeah, and then like just that core thing, like even if we do get off track a bit, like that doesn't mean like we'll never get back, or we'll never get to where we're going, or we can't, you know, decide to like go down a different path later on. And so that to me was just like huge, to like huge, just like a huge, like I don't know, I just like almost like a comforting hug, just been like, it's okay, like if you feel like, you know, like this path that you went down like isn't right for you, then like it's okay to change, and it's okay to like, and your past 4 years, you like, you don't have to worry about those being a waste. Like there were things that I learned and people who I met during that time that I think, you know, added enrichment to my life. And did I necessarily need to have those experiences or to meet those specific people? I don't know. Like, you know, really depends on the day and my mood when, if you ask me about that. But like the point is like they added enrichment to my life, and even just that, I think you know, made it worth it, and made like, you know, and just like also just like looking back on it now, like and all the things that I've learned, like, you know, those two decisions that I've talked about, you know, moving out to New York City and like changing careers, like, you know, were two of the hardest decisions that I made. But because like they were so difficult for me to make, and they were so like they came with so much like trial with them, like I feel like I've learned a lot, like, and you know, I've progressed a lot as a person. And I think like that's hugely important. So anyway, from that time though, like I decided like, you know, like I was for sure going to switch careers. And from there I did a complete 180 in careers. I ended up signing up for a full stack web development boot camp that started my very last week teaching. So this was like May of 2021. And I took this boot camp. It was 6 months. And then afterwards, I started applying for jobs in the tech industry in web development and software engineering. And I got a job in April of last year. So it's been almost a year at this point, with a company that like I really enjoy working for. I'm a software engineer, so we work with like their website and like developing that and everything. And I am just having such a fun time with them. And I feel like it's like a much better like career fit for me. You know, like I feel like all of those anxieties and those frustrations that I felt like in the teaching profession are just like not there, you know. I feel like my anxiety levels just in general have just like dropped completely, which was like huge, like mentally and emotionally, like, you know, like I was describing, like I was like so miserable all the time. Like I'm just like, I'm not miserable all the time anymore. That doesn't mean I don't have bad days. Like I still definitely do. And there's still days where like, even just this past week, you know, like where I just get like really anxious and like, just like really like stressed about like things and everything. So like that hasn't gone away completely, but like, it's so much more manageable for me. And it's it feels like, you know, even when I do have like really bad days, like it's not like they're really bad days on top of like, you know, just a really like frustrating situation that I'm in. And so it's a lot easier to handle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But like and like I just like feel like, you know, like with those two decisions, like although they were so difficult for me to make, and they took a lot of courage and like, you know, and faith, both in God and in myself too. Like once I made those decisions though, like I just felt like so much happier. And like I like wish I could like kind of just like sit my younger self down and just like just, you know, be like, you know, like like just set my younger self down and just be like, you know, there's a lot more like better things coming, and you have so much more power to like, you know, take control of your circumstances and to change them and to really like make a life that you've always wanted. And I think like that's been like, you know, some of the big things and the big takeaways that I've learned from this. Um,
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with all the things you said, Tianna. Sometimes those decisions, it seems like sometimes it's like I don't know why I'm doing this. And I honestly have made decisions I'm like, I don't know still why I was supposed to make them, but Heavenly Father has something in store for me someday to be able to look back and be like, oh, I get it. It's just not yet. So I do have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
yeah, so this is quite a question, and I've heard you ask it, you know, every time on your podcast and everything, and I like I as I've been thinking about it, I think like really what it for me like what it comes down to is just the the fact that we have not been forgotten, especially like as Native people. Like I feel like there's in our history there's a lot of like, you know, sadness and hardship and everything um that comes with like our history and with like, you know, things that us and our families have been through. But like having the this promise to like, you know, made to us that we're not forgotten, that, you know, God knows who we are. He still remembers that like we are here. And like we have also been promised that we will, you know, um we will continue to be here and to exist. I think that's like huge. And it gives me a lot of hope just in the future, just that, you know, despite like all the the frustrations and the hardships that like, you know, our people face, like we are still beloved children of our Heavenly Father who knows us and who loves us. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I know it's nice to know that we're cherished, and as sons and daughters of God, He knows us individually and as a people. Thank you. So, thank you for your time, Tianna. It's been delightful.
Yeah, thank you.
Elder Gong, in General Conference, said, "Faithful consistency brings miracles." I think that's the direct quote. He was talking about ministering, but that quote really meant something to me. I think it's more than just ministering. I think it's all of the things that we're asked to try and do in the church. Faithful, consistent. Think about that. Like, faithful consistency, if you do family history, you're gonna have family history blessings. Faithful consistency in temple attendance, you will be able to receive revelation when you go to the temple. Faithful consistency in paying tithing will help you to prosper in the land, not necessarily like financially, but with the spirit, like is described in the Book of Mormon. Faithful consistency in obeying the prophet. He's given us lots of things to do, and even a lot of them with promises for us. And those blessings from the promises are miracles. I don't know. That really affected me. So, what examples can you think of where faithful consistency has brought you miracles? I'd love to hear any of them. I hope that you had your spiritual bucket filled with General Conference, and I hope you have a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.